Hi there, it's Kevin from RogueDeckBuilder.com here with another episode of Modern on a Budget. In this episode, I'd like to take a look at the Modern Enchantment deck, which is a lot like the standard enchantment deck that has been, the Bant Enchantments that has been posting very good numbers recently. It actually won the last Grand Prix, actually took first and second the Bant Enchantments list. And this deck, this modern version of it, is actually a lot faster and a lot more efficient. Has access, of course, to more cards, more overpowered auras. And basically, you just slap a really cheap hexproof dude out and slap a ton of auras on him and try to kill them as quick as possible. So I'm just going to go down the list here, and keep in mind, we can make this version a lot cheaper. This is about a budget modern deck, the series is, and so there are definitely some easy cuts in this deck that I can point out where you can save a buck here or save a buck there, or in case of these lands, save a lot of bucks here and there. So I'm just going to go over the list here. The first card they're using in here is they're using 7 fetch lands. Different versions use different ones. This one's using the cheaper lands, the ones that go in fetch white. The reason why they use fetch lands is a way to go get a singleton temple garden into play. This deck doesn't need a lot of lands to function, as it is only using 20, and I've actually seen some versions actually going into 18 to 20. So Arid Mesas, I would probably say this deck uses, I guess it would use more white than green, but you do want a green first turn, that's for sure. And either Arid Mesa or Marsh Flat does go get a Temple Garden. Now these aren't necessary, they just make your deck a little more efficient, and Arid Mesas are expensive. They're around $20 to $25, and same with Marsh Flats. So there's a simple way you can cut down the cost of this deck is just by using, say, the Sun Petal Groves, or maybe even you definitely want a turn 1 green. So I would highly suggest not using too many of like the filter lands or anything like that, where you wouldn't have the option for first turn green. But you can easily just go 4 Razorverge Thickets and 4 Temple Gardens, and that's probably sufficient enough if you play just regular plains and forests for this deck to work properly. But again, eventually you probably do want these fetch lands, as it does help thin out your deck, and it does guarantee that Temple Garden. Another card that's kind of expensive, I don't know what Horizon Canopy is going for these days, but last time I checked it was quite pricey. This is just another one of those, you're in the 2 colors that make Horizon Canopy awesome to play, and it's a great card because you can sack it to draw a card. And late game, this is when you get land flooded, you can just ditch your Horizon Canopy and hopefully draw into an answer. So these 7-10 lands here, I would say, could easily be replaced. Like I said, Sun Petal Grove is a decent alternative, even Sun Petal's at $6 right now, which is crazy because that card's been reprinted a gazillion times. I expect it to go down. It's got to. And anyway, yeah, you could just definitely go just the regular plains and forests here. I do suggest Razorverge Thickets are cheap, and Temple Gardens are very accessible right now, so you can pick up Temple Gardens in Return to Ravnica packs, and the price should stabilize around $8 to $10. It's at $12 right now, but Temple Gardens eventually will go down, especially with the rest of the Gatecrash fixers. Standard players won't need to play as many Temple Gardens, as they will have now access to the other fetch lands or shock lands. Anywho, another reason why, if you haven't picked up your Razorverge Thickets, pick them up now. $3 is a bargain. They were $2 a month ago. I expect $1 to keep increasing now for the next, I would say, 4 to 5 months, until it's maybe around an $8 card, I think is what Razorverge Thicket will probably settle down at. Anyway, let's go onto the creatures here, the hexproof creatures. These are all commons. Every one of them is a common, as you can see here. A couple other versions do use, now that I can't think about it, it's a 2 mana from one of the Zednikar blocks. Whenever you play an Aura spell, draw a card, and it gets +2/+2 for every Aura on him. He costs 2. He is a rare, though, 1 and a white. Some versions like to use him, but I've heard complaints that he's very fragile, and unless you can stick an Umbra on him, he dies pretty quickly, and then even with an Umbra, they can still target him and get rid of the Umbra, and that's why a lot of people just cut him. They thought the hexproof, having this many hexproofs and more access to even more auras, was better than that dude. I'll have to find the name. Anyway, so the first one here is Gladecover Scout. It's from M12. It's a common. This set was opened like crazy for trying to get Primeval Titans. So M12, very highly open set. There should be tons of these in the bulk piles at your store. I personally checked through my little collection, had plenty. Even though I didn't even play M12, I do buy people's commons and uncommons or do trade for them. So I had tons of these in my bulk that I've now taken out of bulk and moved to my modern pile. Going on to the number two card. This is a 2-mana caster, but he kind of works like an invisible stalker for green. He can only be blocked by creatures with flying and has hexproof. So very, very much like invisible stalker. I prefer the Solana Ledgewalker. Like I said, a lot of people use the core Aura dude instead because he's also another 2 casting cost. Or a combination of both of them. But I do prefer the Sledgewalker. I think the cannot be blocked except by creatures with flying is very, very good in this format. Other than you're seeing Lingering Souls everywhere now. And then, of course, onto the other hexproof 1/1 is Slippery Boggle. I found these pretty easily as well. And bought the store out. Bought every one that they had. I might go to another store and buy them out as well today. I'm not sure. Onto the auras, which make this deck. The first one is your expensive aura. It went from $2 to $15 almost overnight, which is Daybreak Coronet. This card is simply amazing as it gives your creature +3 sleeve, first strike, vigilance, and lifelink. All of those are very, very, very good in this deck on your hexproof dude. Keep in mind you cannot enchant him unless you have already enchanted him, but as it is a two casting cost, usually it's perfect on turn 3 after you cast one of these dudes to Rancor it and Coronet it, or Ethereal Armor Coronet it. This version, he runs a package of 1 Dismember, 4 Path of Exile. Of course, you can use your own combinations. I've actually seen people running Journey to Nowhere in this deck as an alternative to Path of Exile and Dismember. It's even another cheap removal spell. The only problem, it is not instant speed, but it is an enchantment. So it does even pump your Ethereal Armor if you do use Journey to Nowhere. But it's just your choice. These do run around $5 and these run around $2. So if you're looking to cut down the price, Journey to Nowhere is a bulk uncommon. Either common or uncommon, I can't remember what it is, but it's from, I believe it's from the Zednikar block as well. Can't remember which set exactly. But that is an alternative. You can save $1 or $2 from using them. Then we got Ethereal Armor, common out of Return to Ravnica. They're everywhere. Amazing card. This makes your creatures out of control very quickly. Even with just this in a Rancor, you have a Rancor. Sorry, I'll pronounce it right before I get yelled at. You have a dude that's 5. Usually like a 5/3 trample first strike, which, that's a 4-turn clock once you get this in a Rancor attached to something. Then onto the Umbras. Umbras are awesome because if they do have a way to kill your creature, say like a Supreme Verdict, or let's say a Pyroclasm or anything like that would destroy it, you just remove the Umbra and your guy stays in play. So it basically gets rid of the answers they have that Hexproof doesn't deal with, and then gives your guy another way to survive that. Keep in mind that your dudes are still vulnerable to effects like Infest or Sacrifice effects, because something that makes it -X that would put its toughness below 0 is not destroying it. It's kind of just like making it so it doesn't exist. So that doesn't work with the Umbra. And also Sacrifice effects do not destroy. So that is 2 ways to get around this deck right now. That's why you've seen Infest and Guess Verdict actually see a rise. And even Liliana works against this deck. Liliana's a pain for this deck. Anyway, where I mentioned Path to Exile. Rancor, another one that's amazing. Amazing card. You get it back if your creature does decide to die, or if they have any sort of enchantment removal. This just goes back to your hand. Then they have a 2 of Spider Umbra, another Totem Armor. Very good in this deck. The reach is kind of pointless, but the +1/+1 in Totem Armor for 1 mana is amazing. Another Umbra that I've considered is Snake Umbra. Snake Umbra is 3 mana though, so it might be a little costly for this deck, but you get +1/+1 Totem Armor and draw a card out of the package. There also is a green enchantment, can't remember what it's called, but it's the green version of Curiosity that people do run in this deck. Now on to Spirit Link. The reason why I was asked a question by a local player, why Spirit Link? Because he was playing Life Link in his deck, the enchantment, or what? Yeah, I think it is just called Life Link that is an enchantment that gives a creature lifelink. Well, Spirit Link isn't lifelink. If you read the text here, it says when an enchanted creature deals damage, you gain that much life. This is different than giving him the ability of lifelink. Why this is so good is it can stack with Daybreak Coronet. Daybreak Coronet gives it lifelink. This just makes it so when it deals damage, you gain that much life. So yep, that's the big difference. Then we're on to Spirit Mantle. This is another great card as it gives your dude protection from creatures, either on the aggressive or on the defense. And yeah, that's just all of these. Every one of these cards here, there is no rares except for the Daybreak Coronet in this list right here. So very, 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 very affordable deck, especially if you cut the fetch lands and the Horizon Canopies for just basic lands, which is very feasible. It won't hurt your deck too much. Of course, these just make your deck more efficient, which is important if you're going to be, of course, playing this at a high-level tournament. If you're just going to go to your local F&M when Modern is sanctioned, this is a great starter deck for you to play around with. You will do very well. Let's go on to the sideboard here. This particular version uses Leyline of Sanctity. That's fine. Good against Storm. Decent against a few other combo decks. Of course, you could use stuff like Ghostly Prison for Splinter Twin. Nature's Claim is an interesting addition. Very good against like Affinity and any other artifact or enchantment strategy. Gets rid of their Ghostly Prison, even though you're only usually seeing with one dude. But you can get rid of their nuisance enchantments. But also, if you're at the point where you actually need to destroy your own enchantment to gain some life, you can actually, I mean, that comes in handy in this deck because it says destroy your artifact enchantment, its controller, that's you, if you're destroying your own artifact, gains 4 life. So you can actually use this spell to keep yourself in the game for another swing. Retether is an interesting choice in this deck. 4 mana is a little costly, but returning each aura from your graveyard, say they did destroy, there is now, I think it's a 2 mana sorcery from green that just destroys all enchantments, and white has a ton of them as well that people are starting to side in. If they use that, this is a way to get your auras back from your graveyard and attached immediately onto one of your creatures. I'm liking the Stony Silence, of course, because it shuts down Eggs, it shuts down Affinity, and it shuts down Tron, which are all very, very popular in this format. So if you're playing white, Stony Silence is usually a auto-include in white sideboard decks. So yeah, it works with Ethereal Armor as well, which is cool. Suppression Field. I haven't seen this card in a long time, but it is pretty good. There are plenty of like Deathrite Shaman, or even like even Karn that is an activated ability. Using a Planeswalker ability is an activated ability. So there are a lot of targets that Suppression Field does shut down that are activated abilities. Grim Lavamancer is another one I can think of. But so Suppression Field, I'd have to see exactly why this person decided to side it in. I mean, we could take a look at some of these other decks to see what it would shut down. Really nothing from this. Yeah, well, it would shut down like Ratchet Bomb. Maybe that's what it is in here for. It does shut down Ratchet Bomb. Makes them pay 2 more for it anyway, which could be the difference between you swinging or not. So yeah, there are plenty of targets, but even Stony Silence shuts down Ratchet Bomb. Anyway, there are a few other, of course, enchantments. There was a double striking enchantment that looked kind of cool. Also, I'm trying to think of the name here too. The green-blue enchantment from the Shards block. It gives it vigilance if it's green, I believe. Yeah, it gives it vigilance if it's green and flying if it's blue. And that only costs, I believe, 2 mana. And so it's a great Slippery Boggle target. You give your Slippery Boggle flying and vigilance, making it a 3/3 on turn 3. 3/3 hexproof on turn 3. With vigilance is actually pretty good because it can stay back on the swing back and block their Goblin Guide or something. So there are plenty of other enchantments you can work with besides these ones here. These seem to be the most efficient ones. I mean, the ones that you're going to include are Hyena, which is very good. The First Strike and Totem Armor is awesome. The Ethereal Armor and the Rancor. And of course, if you have the money for the Daybreak Coronets, which are pricey right now, they are $15 a piece, but they are worth the investment to kind of make this deck as legit as possible. Anyway, I'm going to actually be doing some games in real life in Paper Magic. I'm going to go to the local store and see if I can put this deck together and play some matchups with it. Anyway, this is Kevin from RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.